Hello and welcome to the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where we are now in our third season of helping everyday runners fuel better, run smarter, and recover faster so you can reach your full performance potential. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchuk, dietitian, running coach, twin mom, and fellow runner too. As the owner of Stephanie Natchuk Performance Nutrition, I've spent over a decade helping runners learn to fuel their bodies better, unlock their best running performances, and establish healthier relationships with food and exercise. This podcast is all about helping you become the very best runner you can be by teaching you the running-specific nutrition, training, and recovery strategies that you need to reach all your wildest health, fitness, and running goals. If you're ready to reconnect with your love of running, join me each week as I share my best advice, interview guest experts, and talk to everyday runners who are conquering their goals by tapping into the power of performance nutrition, with a side of some myth busting too. And if you're looking for even more tips, resources, and strategies for runners, you can find me on Instagram at Steph the Runner's Dietitian or by visiting www.stephanienatchuk.com. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Start today's episode, I just want to really quickly invite you to download my free fueling guide and strength training guides for runners. Currently available as a handy little bundle for you all in one at the link in the show notes. So just to give you more information, in this free fueling guide, you're going to find my top fueling tips for runners. As well, in there, I've put together some meal ideas and even a couple of recipes for your pre and post run fuel. We've also got some suggestions for what to fuel with during your run to make sure that you just have the best overall performance possible. If you've really been struggling to understand what to eat, when, where to start when it comes to supporting your running with better nutrition, this guide is here to help you kickstart your running journey. The other guide that I mentioned is my strength training guide for runners. We know that runners are notoriously bad at consistently getting their strength training in. So this guide includes both a PDF resource, it's got some tips, some guidelines, as well as a link to my series on YouTube where I walk you through all the exercises in this program, giving you some suggestions on proper form, how to modify if needed, how to progress things if needed. This is a really great beginner's guide to strength training for runners who want an effective but efficient full body workout that is going to support the key muscles and movements you need to run stronger and help stay injury free. So once again, both of these guides are available as a handy little bundle. So you just click on the link in the show notes, enter your email address once, and both of the free guides are going to get sent to your inbox right away. I really hope that you find these guides helpful and that they support you and your running goals in the most effective way possible. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where we are taking a little bit of a diversion away from running content, talking about running, nutrition, and training for runners and things that are very running specific, which I apologize because that is the purpose of this podcast and the focus of this podcast. And I say time and time and again how important it is to make sure that as a runner, you're seeking out running specific information. We're shifting gears a little bit today to a topic that I think for many of us, like runners and non-runners alike, people of a huge age range and coming from all different parts of the world and different genders and, just so many of us have been touched by this topic. And I want to dive into it today. So what we're going to be talking about today is the show The Biggest Loser, but specifically because very recently on, I think it was Netflix, came out a three-part documentary about the show and just sort of revisiting some of the people who were on the show, talking to some people who were part of the show, talking to people who produced the show, talking to other experts kind of on topics that the show covered and things like that. So that's why we're talking about this, because of course The Biggest Loser has not been on TV in the last season took place in 2020, but like the main show ran until 2016. So it's been almost a decade since this show was on TV. Why are we talking about it now? Because of the release of this new documentary. So if The Biggest Loser and talking about weight loss and all of this kind of stuff that we're going to talk about today, because of course we're going to be talking about a lot of weight focused and weight centric type of ideas. If that is not something that you're up for listening to, if that's something that you want to discuss, no problem. Just want to let you know what we're covering today. So feel free to check out an episode from previous that you maybe have missed, or meet us back next week where I promise we're going to be coming back to the running world. But when I saw that this documentary had come out, I really wanted to watch it. Not because I was a huge Biggest Loser viewer back in the day. I actually wasn't. And I'm going to talk about what I was watching instead back in that era. But because so many people, and I'm actually surprised after watching this and then having conversations with people around me in the last couple of weeks, I was actually surprised at how many lives this show touched in such a deep way. And it's been incredible in a bad way to still have conversation with people to this day who just carry some of that stuff along with them. And of course, I work with clients every single day who are athletes, who are runners, but still have so much of this weight centric and weight focused ideology in their minds. And I think a lot of that can come back to just the obsession that there was around The Biggest Loser, and, like not just the show, but the brand. I mean, we're talking about something like there was exercise equipment, there was food, there was books, there was like it just integrated into our society, into our culture in such a huge way that I think if you were alive in, the early kind of mid 2010s, I don't know that you'd be able to get away from it. Like maybe you didn't watch the show actively, but I think we all were aware, we all have an understanding of what The Biggest Loser was and what the messaging was. So again, that's what we're going to be talking about today. For people who maybe don't remember or aren't super familiar with the show, I'm going to just share kind of a little very, very quick background overview. So The Biggest Loser, the TV show, ran from 2004 to 2016. So that is a very long run. It was on like prime time network television. Like this was a big deal. They did have one last season in 2020. As the documentary kind of gets into after 2016, when some of the negative stuff about the show was coming out, there was allegations being made, there was newspaper articles coming out about like the harms and the destruction of the show. That's when they basically wrapped it up. And then it came back one final season in 2020. But after that, it's kind of been, put to the wayside. And so it was a 30-week competition. So it was just over half a year. And basically the person who loses the most weight by the end wins, right? Don't quote me on this again, 'cause I actually did not religiously watch this show at the time. But it was as a percentage or a proportion of their starting weight. And so there were weekly challenges involving like physical challenges and challenges involving food temptation. Temptation challenges that a lot of times involved food. And, watching even just these clips from this documentary, like this show did not age well at all. And I think the degree to which this show did not age well cannot be understated. I mean, if they were trying to make this in 2025, people would be horrified. I mean, not just for the like shock value, humiliation, like that part of it, but also just like the food waste. Like I think a lot of people would also be rightfully so upset to just, have all of this food there that essentially is going to just be thrown away. And it's shocking to go back and watch the things that they're getting people to do for these challenges. And to hear the commentary from people who did watch the show in that era and, just sort of the lack of disgust or disappointment or negative feelings that we had from witnessing this stuff. But yeah, so to kind of zoom out a little bit, that part was really surprising for me. But to kind of zoom out a little bit from there, I just want to explain a couple of things. The first is that I am sitting here as someone who's been in the fitness industry for a really long time. I became a personal trainer in 2009 and registered dietitian in 2012. So I have been part of the fitness and nutrition industry for many, many years at this point. And I have never, ever liked Jillian Michaels. Never liked her. I've never liked her TV personality. I don't know what she's like in real life. I don't know her. Maybe this is just something that she kind of hypes up for the cameras. But I just want you guys to understand that we are entering into this discussion with me, someone who already has a very negative view of her online persona, and how she represents fitness professionals, right? The character that she makes personal trainers and fitness professionals out to be. And even as someone who never looked up to her, as someone who never strived to be like her, as someone who spent a lot of time actively trying to make sure people understood that I was not like her, it's still really created this perception and this idea of what a personal trainer was supposed to be, both in mentality and in approach and in attitude and in looks. And that's hard when you are someone who works as a fitness professional or a nutrition professional who doesn't fit into that standard. Not only are you struggling with that culture and that diet culture on your own, but you're also always feeling like you're not enough, not good enough, because you don't look like these people that are on the covers of the magazines and have that, stern face, whatever. So don't love her, don't love her persona, don't love how she, represents the fitness industry and fitness professionals as a whole. But I also have a really big issue with reality TV and especially weight loss based reality TV, right? As we go through this episode, I'll kind of explain, some of my issues with turning weight loss into a game. But it's more than that. It's the reality TV of trying to blend together this game and this competition, but trying to pretend that it's so real. And those lines just are so blurry. And I think that that's what has led to The Biggest Loser becoming such a cultural thing and having so much impact on diet culture and weight loss culture and the way that people think about weight loss to this day, is because, yes, it was a game show and it was a competition, but they really tried to make it seem like it wasn't. And when you watch the documentary and you're listening to the producers and people that were on the show, so the trainer, Bob, he is interviewed quite a lot. He's a big, big part of this documentary, so he's in it a lot. So when you're listening to them talk about it, they're kind of coming from this perception of, well, yeah, it was a game show. Yeah, it was fake. Yeah, it was TV. It was entertainment. But what they're not admitting to, which frustrates me so much, is that they also spend a lot of time and effort trying to make it not that. And so they're sitting there being like, well, yeah, if you don't realize that it was a game show, it was just TV and entertainment, that's on you. You're dumb. But I don't think that's fair because they're working so hard to blur those lines. And it's just really frustrating to kind of hear them talk about it and not take responsibility. And then, when you see the impact that that's had on our society. So I do truly at my core feel that weight loss TV, weight loss reality TV is humiliating and exploitative. And it does so much more harm than good for both the participants involved and the viewers of these shows for those reasons. There was some other weight loss based reality TV shows at the time. They were kind of around the same era. This one was Canadian. It was called X Weighted. I don't know if any of you guys were watching X Weighted back in those days, but I, early in my personal training and fitness journey was a huge watcher of X Weighted. And there was a sort of branch of this show where they had families, and it was like weight loss as a family. So like, the trainer guy, and I don't remember the name of the trainer that was on this show, but um he would go to these people's homes, and there was some pretty young kids often as part of these families. And there was one episode in particular that I honestly, I still think about it to this day, and came up for me when I was, preparing for this episode, talking about this Loser documentary, and when I was watching the Biggest Loser documentary and kind of reflecting to myself, like where is kind of the core of the issue for me, and what makes me so uncomfortable about weight loss reality TV. And it really comes back to this particular episode of the show X Weighted. And so it was a family, and there was this young boy in the family. And I don't know, maybe he was like, I'm going to say he was maybe 8 years old in this episode. And so, of course, the beginning of the episode, they have to showcase the families and, how awful their eating habits are and how lazy they are. And, all this typical fat person stuff, right? Like them sitting on the couch and they're eating chips and watching TV and having ice cream and this kind of stuff. Like thin people never sit on the couch and eat snack foods, right? Like it's just, again, it creates this perception of what fat people versus thin people do and how they are, and how, right? Like a thin person would never be sitting on the couch watching TV, right? Because we're, too busy running laps all day long, or never eating snack foods because thin people never ever eat snack foods. And just hyping up this persona of what being overweight is and what it means, which of course is so harmful and so, um, untrue at its core. But anyway, this episode, they're showing this little boy getting dressed. And so this little boy is putting his clothes on in the morning. He's got no shirt on in this clip. So of course we can all bear witness to his imperfect 8-year-old body, which again, like just, oh my God. And he's struggling to get his pants on, right? His pants are too tight, and he's trying to get himself into his pants. And like, it makes me a little bit emotional to think about this kid. And there's this room full of adults who've put him in this situation. His parents, the producers, like all these people involved. And, someone told him to do that. And everyone thought this is okay, right? Maybe this is for his own good. This kid needs to be whipped into shape. This kid needs to get it together. And he's too fat, and look at him, his pants don't fit. And I remember watching this and just feeling like it was so wrong. And as a fellow chubby 90s kid, I was right there with this little boy when I was a kid, when I was his age. And I could not help but think, like, oh my gosh, like how humiliating for this poor boy, right? Like, this is on television. I mean, I wouldn't have even gotten dressed in front of my friends when I was that age, right? Like, I wouldn't have let my friends, my best friends in the entire world, I wouldn't have let them see me like that. Never mind letting an entire camera crew into my bedroom to watch me struggle to get my pants on. And his friends at school are probably going to see this. And it just like, that just really broke something for me about reality weight loss TV, and just the things that we're putting people through for our own entertainment, I suppose. Like, anyway, so yes, this is, gets me really fired up. And I just, have a lot of feelings around how that how that affects people. And then I have to think about the other side of it though, right? I have to kind of flip and think about it from this reality TV perspective, right? Reality TV is fake. It's not real, and it's meant to keep you watching. So like, yes, they're showing this boy trying to get dressed, but maybe those pants were like not even his, right? Maybe those were pants that fit him 2 years ago, right? Kids grow, kids get bigger. But someone thought, oh, make better TV is this kid not being able to get dressed and having him struggle to get dressed, right? So like, honestly, both of these things, right? Whether those were his real pants or not, doesn't matter. Both of these two options are horrifically, horrendously wrong. And I hate them both. And the fact that both of these happened to this kid on TV is just like, horrifies me. But these are some of the many reasons why I don't like reality TV or weight loss TV, because, you know, either what you're seeing is real and that's bad, or what you're seeing is fake and that's also bad. And especially because they're trying to make you think that it's real. And I just can't. So anyway, I was going down the rabbit hole of these weight loss shows, you know, trying to find the name of that one and you know, having that memory. And then another one came up. Does anybody remember the show Bulging Brides? Like, Bulging Brides. Are you kidding me? Like, we are not okay. Like, that era of television was not okay. And to this day, right, we still have this persistent idea that, you know, you need to get into a certain size wedding dress. And like on this show, if anybody didn't watch the show, I mean, oh Lord, they would have this poor girl, this bride, and she would be, you know, in a dressing room. She usually they would ambush her like in the store, I think, like in the wedding dress store. She'd be trying on this dress and the dress would be too tight. Now, again, right? Was this even her real wedding dress? I have no idea. You know, like, again, this is all fake. But she'd be trying on this wedding dress. Can't get the zipper up. Oh, it doesn't fit. And you know, the trainer and the nutritionist person would show up, and they would be wearing like their camo army garb and come. We're gonna whip you into shape, kind of thing. Not only are we gonna get you this dress, we're gonna get this dress a size smaller. And it was like the same every single time. They were gonna like even get her down another size, right? Like, the idea being that you are a more worthy, beautiful bride, you're a better person, you're more deserving of getting married if you're smaller and if you fit into that smaller wedding dress. And like, I mean, the grooms and the men in this were, I don't remember the grooms ever being part of this. Like, I don't remember anything about there ever being a partner involved in this show that but anyway, we're talking about this, you know, almost 20 years ago. But it was all about her and making her as small as she could possibly be for her wedding day, because your value as a bride was in how small you could be. So yeah, no, we're not okay. All right, so back to The Biggest Loser. That was a little detour that I took you on, but yeah, so back to The Biggest Loser. So I didn't really watch it much when it was live. And when I was first kind of planning to do this episode, I thought, well, maybe I was just too young for that show. You know, we actually didn't have cable TV in my house till 2006. We had something called Farmer Vision. So if you know what Farmer Vision is. But, you know, as I mentioned, I was a chubby kid who grew up in the 90s. So I was still very impacted and affected by weight loss culture, these body ideals and expectations of the time. And, you know, The Biggest Loser was one show of many, actually, and many that came after it and at the same time as it. But I think because of its sort of prime time spot on network TV, I think it was on NBC, but because of its prime time spot, it was like, you know, Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, like really hot spot on TV, it became this like truly cultural phenomenon. And it really impacted, I think, to this day, the way that we think about weight loss and diets and all of this stuff, like in a bad way. You know, so I was sitting around with some friends. It took me a couple days to get through the documentary, but as I was watching it, I had mentioned to some of my friends that I was watching it. I was planning to do a podcast episode about it. And I just kind of brought up while we were sitting around after one of our ultimate frisbee games one night. Yeah, I'm working on this podcast. Like, did anybody here actually watch that show? And everybody was like, oh my gosh, yes, like religiously we watched this show. So all these girls are about my age, you know, give or take a couple of years. And so, you know, definitely we were not too young. I mean, maybe we were too young for it, but certainly they were watching it every single week, and a lot of them like with their families. This was something that they all sat and did together, right? So like, this was, we all come together as a family and we sit and we watch The Biggest Loser together. And that's like, you know, family time and this like wholesome way to all get together, which now is just, to me, like horrifying and laughable, but that was just the era that we were in. And so I was taking a lot of notes during our conversation because some of what they said was like really wild. Like some of what they were saying to me was really crazy, but also like after watching the documentary, kind of exactly what I expected to hear from people who were watching the show at the time. So one of my friends said, and I couldn't believe this one, she remembers thinking at the time, like watching the show in real time and thinking to herself that she actually couldn't believe that Jillian Michaels was like selected to be a trainer on the show because her thighs were so big. Like it just shows like this thin ideal, this diet culture and this thin expectation ran so deep that like even the professional thin person on the show, you've got people or not subconscious, but like people sort of in their minds being like, wow, like they let Jillian Michaels be on here? Like, oh, that, like really thinking that was crazy. And of course, my friend was not judging Jillian Michaels, like by no means, but this was definitely in sort of the well before the strong, not skinny era, right? If you kind of remember the journey that we've gone on here over the course of diet culture and all of that over the decades, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was thin is better, right? Weighing less is better, being smaller is better. Then there was this like interesting pushback against that, which I think was needed and definitely a step in the right direction, but did not quite get us where we needed to be. And that at first you had to be just skinny, right? And then there was sort of this uprising of like, no, we want to be strong. Like we're women who go to the gym and we lift weights and we don't just waste our time doing hours and hours of cardio. We, we're in there pumping iron and stuff like that. And you get into this sort of like strong, not skinny era. And I mean, that era came with a tremendous amount of diet culture, right? Low carb diets. That was when the paleo diet was kind of at its peak. And it was very much still for an aesthetic, right? Like it wasn't about how strong you actually are. It was about how strong you looked. So you still needed to be like 5% body fat, right? Because we wanted to see your muscles, right? A flat stomach wasn't good enough anymore. Now we want to see abs on your stomach. Having small legs isn't good enough, right? Having thin legs isn't good enough. We want to see the definition of your muscles. And so, while I think that it probably was very helpful for some people to not do hours and hours of cardio and starve themselves just to get the number down on the scale, it still was very much diet culture. It was just changing the expectation of what the perfect body looks like. So I think that very much still there was a huge struggle there for a lot of people. And so one thing I really wanted to understand from people who were watching the show in real time, right? Because obviously TV is meant to be entertainment. Reality TV, even though it's supposed to be real, we know it's not, and it's fake, it's meant to be entertaining and engaging and keep you watching and have like that shock value, right? And so one thing I wanted to understand from my friends was when you were watching some of these episodes and watching some of the things that they were making people do. In my mind, like more specifically the food temptation challenges, like when I saw that, like that really struck me as not okay. Having them in the gym yelling at them and doing all this exercise and these workout challenges, like I mean, obviously I don't like that either. And we now know how harmful and dangerous that is for people. But, specifically the idea that if we stick all of these fat people in a room and we fill the room with food, surely they're going to not be able to control themselves, right? Because the reason that you're overweight is because you have no self-control, right? And this is a statement and a judgment on you as a person, right? And if we really think about that and we really kind of go deeper with that, this is a commentary on what we think and what we feel about people who are overweight as a society. And whether you yourself are in that group of people or not, this might be something that you've been told and led to believe, like if you do fall into that group, you might be someone who has been led to believe that this is true about yourself. You're watching the way they're treating people, the things they're putting people through. And in the back of your mind, it's like that that makes sense. This is okay. And that was what everyone felt like. So this one temptation challenge they kind of point to in the documentary. They show this fairly brief clip, but what I gathered from it, they had this big room full of food, and it was like, obviously high calorie types of things, donuts, pizza, like whatever else. And they had to move it around the room, do something with it, but they couldn't use their hands. So presumably they have to pick up all of this food like with their teeth or like whatever other body parts. And I guess part of the challenge is that like you're going to be so tempted by all of this food that you're going to have it in your mouth, or this piece of pizza that you're going to like not you're going to have no choice but to eat the pizza that you have in your mouth. I don't know. Like honestly, it's probably been sitting out for 6 hours. It's all stale and cold and gross, and like even if it ew, right? After how many takes? I don't know. But yeah, so what my friends were saying was, the answer is no. Like there was no pause, there was no question, there was no, wow, this is a really messed up thing to do to people. Wow, this is really wrong. Wow, this doesn't sit well with me. Like, wow, this isn't okay. Like nobody felt that hesitation or nagging sense of this not being all right, because what everyone agreed upon and kind of understood, right? Like what was at that time. And I mean, for some people, this of course still persists to this day. And that's part of the cultural impact that this show has had. But everyone agreed that like being fat was the worst thing you could be, right? There was nothing that was worse than being fat. And so all of these challenges, whether it's physical challenge or a temptation challenge, food challenge, whatever it was, like this is for your benefit. This is good for you. And the humiliation is like a helpful and necessary part of the process. So like going through these activities is like teaching you to be better. And we need to embarrass you and humiliate you and show you how awful you are, I guess. And the hardest part about that for me, like now working with people who have been so affected by diet culture and by shows like this, is, to see these belief systems in place, like about themselves and the things that they've been led to believe about themselves, right? And needing to undo that, in that, like, no, there is more than just discipline. There is more than just buckling down. There is more than just like no pain, no gain, and these mentalities that we develop around eating and around exercise. The other big thing from the show that, I really don't appreciate is that it basically taught an entire generation of people that the numbers are the most important thing, right? The numbers are the only thing that matters. And this is honestly, like, I kid you not, this is something that I have now been working my entire life to correct in so many people's minds. I have clients to this day who just, no matter what their other goals in life are, right? Their other performance goals, their running goals, like all these other things that they want for themselves, they still in the back of their minds have a number on the scale that they also want to be. And like, it's so hard when you've got all these other great goals, all these other great, wonderful, positive things you want to achieve in your life, but like low key, you also really want to lose weight. And you end up kind of like sabotaging yourself along the way, or doing things along the way that are ultimately trying to lead you to weight loss, but are going to hinder performance, and back and forth. And this is something that I'm trying so hard, and have worked so hard my entire career to shift, is that the number on the scale is not the thing that we should be focusing on, right? And I don't just mean this in a like ditch the scale, don't worry about weight, like not in a very kind of opposite stance of nothing about weight or health matters, but in that we have better markers of health and fitness and progress, right? Like body composition. And we can talk about like other things that give us more information, gives more information about your health status, about fitness level, about how you're making progress. The number on the scale is just so bottom of the barrel for the things that we can monitor and the things that we can set goals around and the things that we can focus on when it comes to our health and fitness. But like more than that, and kind of going deeper than that, like that stuff is still all sort of like, I don't want to say surface level because it isn't, right? Like health and fitness and things like that are deeply impactful in people's lives and important. But what really like broke my heart in this documentary, like watching these former contestants that they interviewed for this documentary, like what really was so heart-wrenching for me was hearing these former contestants talk about their pre-Biggest Loser selves and talking about the impact that they thought that losing weight would have on their lives. And again, going back to the way that we view overweight people in society and the way that we think about people and the sets of personalities or characteristics that we assign to people who are fat or thin, like this is where you see that come out so clearly, right? Like one of the women that was interviewed talks about how like she thought that when she went on the show, right, she needed to go on the show, absolutely had to go on this show, right, to lose this weight because losing weight was going to make her a better friend. Like what? Why? Like why would your weight dictate your ability to be a good friend? But again, like these are the beliefs that people begin to carry with them, right? Like I'm a bad person if I'm at a higher weight, right? Thin people are better, right? At their core, they're better. And so they're better friends, right? A better parent, right? A lot of people talk about like wanting to lose weight for their kids. And while I understand that we want to have and demonstrate good physical fitness or good eating habits for the sake of our children, right? Like I understand like you want to give your kids that role modeling so that your kids have those lifestyle habits, right? But like this is not a fat versus thin thing, right? This is I see my parent moving their body. I see my parent eating healthy foods. I see my parent participating in recreational activities. I do things with my parents as a family, right? All getting together. This does not have to be a weight thing, right? This is the opposite of a weight thing, right? Being thin does not make you a more loving parent, a kinder parent, right? Being thinner does not give you more generosity or more patience. Being thin does not make you a better listener. It doesn't make you a better partner. It doesn't make you a better person. But there's this belief that if you lose weight, it will solve all of your problems, right? If you can just lose this weight, everything else will fall into place and life will be easy. And unfortunately, right, as many of these people found out, that is not true. That is not the case. And so many of the problems that you had before are still going to be there. And, like you might be setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment when you do see the scale move the way you want it to and everything doesn't automatically get better. There are certainly some parts of life that get better, in the way that you are treated as, a person in society. But that's like, you know, again, it doesn't change you, right? It doesn't give you different characteristics and make you a better or different person. You're still you. And if we have goals for ourselves, right? About being a better role model for our kids, about being a better friend or a better colleague or a better parent or whatever it might be, we can do those things, right? We can work on those things. We can get the skills and the tools and the resources that we need to do those things without ever even getting on the scale ever again. And so that was a big part of it for me too. And that's how a lot of people feel to this day. There's a few other things that came up in conversation when I was talking about this with my friends who would watch the show, things that still to this day, I feel like I'm trying to undo with so many of my clients, right? And one of the really big ones is this show and shows like it set an expectation of how hard you need to work to get results, right? Every workout needs to be soul crushing. Every workout needs to be exhausting, right? and again, I remember this early in my era of being a personal trainer, right? It was this mentality about like after leg day, you shouldn't be able to walk the next day, right? If you can still walk the day after leg day, then like you weren't working hard enough. And just this attitude of every workout needs to take you right to the brink of death. And there's this underlying tone again of like, if a workout is too easy, you're lazy, you're not working hard enough. Especially if you're overweight and trying to lose weight. Like, don't let me see you just barely working up a sweat walking on the treadmill, right? Don't let me see you lifting those 5-pound weights. Don't let me see you on the bike, the recumbent bike kind of thing. It was sort of this idea that like when you walk into a gym and you see overweight people in this space, they better be busting their asses. And, again, we internalize that. And it's both the expectation of the other people around you, but also the expectation of yourself that you need to be working twice as hard as everyone else. Your workouts need to be exhausting, soul crushing, can't take another breath, can't move a muscle, so sore for days after every single workout. And so this is something that's really hard to undo when we get into, spaces where people are injured, right? Because it's a very easy way to get hurt, especially as someone who is fairly new to exercise, right? If you're picking up going to the gym for the first time, you should not be working that hard, right? You should not be killing yourself every time you go to the gym because that's too much, right? It's too hard. You need to ease into things and you need to be gentle with your body and respect your body and slowly build fitness and build strength and let your muscles adapt and your joints adapt and your connective tissues adapt and, just everything, right? And I see it time and time and again where people have this sort of very all or nothing mentality and attitude towards things. And so they're either all in and doing everything 150%, way too much, way too hard, way too much everything, or they're nothing, right? Because it's just this all in black and white. I'm either doing it 100% and I'm good, right? I'm a good person if I'm giving this 110%, or I'm not and I've failed and I'm bad. And trying to find that middle ground and that balance is just something that I just, have to work on so hard with people. And, there's this underlying tone with the workouts, especially of like, you have to work this hard. You deserve this suffering and you deserve this pain. And if you don't want to have to do these things, right? If you don't want to have to work this hard, if you don't want to have to put in this kind of effort, then don't gain weight, right? It's this threat of you can avoid having to do that stuff, having to work that hard, having to lose this weight. Don't get fat. And when we shift gears and we look at running and building up our ability to run, especially things like half marathons, trail races, triathlons, like when we're trying to build up to be an endurance athlete, right? Someone who is out there putting in work for hours at a time. We cannot have every single workout we do be that hard because we need the easier days. We need the recovery days. We need the recovery time in between those hard workouts to actually get the adaptations and get better. But if we're entering into becoming an endurance athlete with the mindset of, if I don't want to die at the end of every workout, that I'm not doing it right and I am not working hard enough, right? That's an incredibly problematic mindset to carry into training as a runner because we need that balance and we need a lot of easy miles, right? How often do we talk about how people just don't do enough easy miles because in their mind, every workout has to be a sufferfest. And that is just, again, really detrimental, really problematic. And especially for people who are newer to the sport and need to build up this physical strength in their bodies for the first time to be able to even have the ability to do this volume and this amount of exercise they're trying to do, they're just going to be stuck injury after injury after injury of just too much too soon. And the other thing that this show unfortunately has done, again, back to Jillian Michaels, is made people deeply afraid of personal trainers. To the point where like there's a lot of people who would never, ever want to work with a trainer because they think that that's going to be who they get, right? And both a fear of that or an expectation of that, right? Like a trainer is going to be a drill sergeant who is going to kick your ass. And I remember like when I first became a personal trainer early in my career, I remember people thinking that like I was going to scream at them like Jillian Michaels. They'd like come into work with me and be like, nervous and afraid, like, oh, what's she gonna make me do? Like they're all stressed out coming into their personal training sessions. And there was this expectation, and yes, perhaps a negative expectation, but still an expectation that I was going to push them so hard, push them to their limit, right? And we're talking about people who are new to exercise, have not exercised in maybe many years or ever. Like these are brand new beginners a lot of the time, right? I was not working with elite athletes. I was not working with experienced professionals, right? People who like, yeah, obviously the more fit you are and the more experienced you are, like the more you can be pushed. Obviously, I never ever would scream at anybody. I think that that's just an absolutely insane way to behave. But there's sort of this persona that they're thinking they're going to get when they get a personal trainer. And so, I hate to disappoint, but I think that sometimes people would feel like, oh, that's it? Like, oh, that was the workout? And yes, it was meant to be at the level they were at. It was meant to be a workout that wasn't killing them, wasn't absolutely crushing them, meant they could come back tomorrow and do more, meant that they could get in a workout within a day or two and not be so sore that they, never want to exercise ever again. But also probably turned some people away and sent some people away from me because they thought that, oh, well, she doesn't know what she's doing, right? I want to feel like I'm dying at the end of this workout because that's how hard I need to work in order to get results. And I deserve to work that hard because I need to lose this weight. And I'm going to lose weight faster if I work this hard, right? Like all of these things from this show, from this weight loss competition that come back and are impacting how people move through their daily lives. And I would say, like, yeah, haha, hey, like, I'm not Jillian Michaels, right? And I don't know if some people stuck with me for a long time because they felt refreshed by that and they liked that, or if other people didn't stick with me because they thought that maybe they weren't going to get the best results with me. And this is such a huge part of how this show and its popularity unfortunately integrated its way into our culture and the expectation it created around weight loss, right? How fast we can lose weight and how extreme we should be losing weight. And of course, how sustainable that weight loss is. But, you sort of create this, well, I want to lose weight and I want to lose it fast because like who doesn't want to reach a goal quickly, right? Nobody sets a goal and is like, "Oh yeah, I'm okay reaching this goal like 10 years down the road." No, we have a goal. We want to get there as quickly as possible. For better or for worse. But when it comes to weight loss, right, this show set the expectation that you can and you should lose half your body weight in half a year, right? 20 pounds in a month, 30 pounds in, 2 months. Like and the harder you work, the more extreme things you do, the more you will be rewarded with seeing the scale change. And that to this day has just done so much damage for so many people because they don't know how to operate in an environment that is more moderate and balanced and slower and safer and healthier and sustainable. All of those things that we're looking for when it comes to weight loss. It's the hard, fast, extreme, right? Tons of exercise. I'm going to train for a marathon. I don't run, but I'm going to sign up for a marathon because if I'm running that much, I have to lose weight, right? I'm going to burn all these calories. For example, the Biggest Loser participants were required to burn about 6,000 calories a day from exercise. So they were exercising 6 to 8 hours a day, paired with a low calorie diet. The doctor on the show was interviewed a lot, and he wanted people to be 1,200 for women and 1,500 for men, something like that, which again, like, is so low for people who are exercising that much. That's not even going to be basal metabolic rate for the vast, vast, vast majority of the participants on this show. I would dare say probably not a single participant on the show. plus burning 6,000 calories a day from exercise, right? Like that is a huge, massive, unsustainable, unhealthy, bad news bears calorie deficit, right? But on top of that, who could ever hope to maintain that when they go back to their real life, right? But it's this idea that like once you lose the weight, you're done, right? You just have to work really hard, focus on it, lose the weight, then you can move on. And that's not real either. That's not true either, right? You go back to the real world after the show, you've got a job, you've got kids, you've got responsibilities. Who can maintain exercising 6 to 8 hours a day, right? I mean, certainly not me, right? Not anybody that I've ever worked with. None of my clients are exercising 6 to 8 hours a day because we just don't have the time, right? We're not professional athletes. We're not being paid to do this as a full-time job. And like, so many of these people on the show were new exercisers, right? They had not exercised in a long time. They were beginners when it comes to movement. And they needed a slower approach to avoid injuries. But you see a lot of these injuries start to pop up, especially as the seasons of the show progress and the contestants are coming in at higher weights. So the first like couple of seasons, some of these participants were not coming in extremely overweight. They're coming in like, they can handle a little bit more in terms of impact and exercise and stuff like that. But when you're looking at someone who, the impact forces of those extra few 100 pounds, like that's going to do damage. You have to go into that slowly. But the reality is that this type of weight loss show would be incredibly boring, right? Imagine me sitting there having my own reality weight loss show and I like have this client come in and I'm like, okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to go for a 20-minute walk every day and keep it easy, keep it slow. And I want you to do 20 minutes of strength training. And, if you feel any soreness or any fatigue, take a day off and then get back to it the next day. On a scale of 1 to 10, make sure that you're not like going past a 7 and just like take it easy. We're going to slowly build up. And like in a month, we're going to go to 30 minutes. And can you imagine? Like snore, right? Nobody's watching this show. This is the worst show I've ever seen. And when you're eating, make more of your plate space, protein and fiber, make one small change every day. We're going to check in and see how that goes. And in a week, like this real stuff, like the actual things that we need to do to see sustainable results is boring AF. It's like, it's not sexy. It's not exciting. And so weight loss is entertainment. To me, it doesn't work because it's not sexy and it isn't exciting, right? It shouldn't be filled with drama. There doesn't need but when you turn it into a game show and you kind of have it unfolding in this way that there has to be something to keep you coming back every single week, not just watching people eat an extra serving of broccoli and not just having people switch out, a chocolate bar for a snack for something with protein and fiber. Like again, that stuff is not entertaining. That is not exciting. And what frustrates me, as I kind of mentioned earlier in the episode, what really frustrates me watching the documentary is the producers and one of the hosts, Bob, like shrugging off this idea that it was meant to be reality, right? They're kind of like, it's entertainment, it's television, what do you expect? But like, they call it reality TV. But it's not reality TV at all, right? Like we're not following these people around in their real lives. This is a game show. And I think that if they called it a game show, everybody would have understood that it wasn't real. Maybe, I don't know. And maybe take it less seriously. But because they want that relatability and they want it to showcase these real people, real circumstances, real whatever, getting to people on an emotional level and getting us to connect and relate to these participants, see ourselves and our struggles or whatever reflecting these participants, they intentionally are blurring and graying those lines, which I think is something that a lot of reality show TV does, which is why I'm just not a huge fan. And what I always what I want people to think about and ask themselves, as we reflect on these shows and these types of shows and, just comedy in general and the people sometimes that comedy is centered around and, pointed at, right? If you swap out these people for thin people, would it still be funny? And I can say that watching a lot of these clips and watching these challenges and watching these things that these people are going through, if you swap that out for a room of Bobs and Jillians, it would not, right? Part of the entertainment value, part of the um, draw of the show was watching these people be humiliated. And part of the humiliation and part of the entertainment was their size, right? And whether or not that was like front of mind and intentional by the producers, I don't know. They didn't talk about this. They didn't really get into it. I don't know. But that was something that just, kept coming up for me as I was thinking about this. So after, they're kind of wrapping up the documentary, and they do briefly touch on some research that was done on some of these participants, looking at what happens to the body and about weight regain. And they talk about a term, they use a term called metabolic adaptations. And so this is a study actually that I have referenced a lot and use a lot when I'm educating people on, the harms that this type of weight loss does, and just sort of the downsides of weight cycling and extreme weight loss and extreme measures to lose weight in the short term, and why balance and moderation and slow results and body composition changes and focusing on that and small things over a long time and all that stuff that I go on and on and on about why it's so important, is this concept of metabolic adaptations, right? And weight cycling is essentially where you are gaining and losing weight over and over and over again, right? Lose however much, gain however much, maybe a little bit more, lose a little bit, gain some more back, this up and down. But over time, the net result is usually weight gain, which is devastating for people, right? Who have spent time and energy and resources and money and everything trying to lose weight. And they've done it. They've been successful a number of times, but at the end of the day, they're back up higher than where they started, right? That's hard, really hard. And the part of the reason is because, our lovely human bodies have adapted to survive in all kinds of extreme conditions, right? Including famine. So we really need to thank our ancestors, right? Their genetic ability to store fat and metabolically adapt to low calorie environments are why we are all here on this planet today. But in today's world, right, where we do have an abundance of calories, and we have limited need to expend energy to get things like food, our brain does not know the difference between a true famine and a self-imposed famine, i.e. a low-calorie diet, very low-calorie diet, and a lot of extreme exercise, right? We're creating this environment for our bodies that previously would have triggered adaptations for survival, right? If you're out there doing all this exercise, right? You're doing all of this work and not eating very much, right? Your system is hardwired to believe that there must be a lack of food around because we're working very hard but not getting food. So we must be working very hard to try and find food, because what else are we going to do, right? What other option do we have? So we better shut down, right? We better reduce our energy expenditure. We better start conserving. And we better start making sure that this body is going to last until the end of this famine. And so when you do that time and time and time again, but then outside of that, you have a calorie excess and an abundance of calories in food, right? You are going to have an easier time storing that as body fat. So this damage that's done over, years and lots of weight cycling, right? It's something that we really need to be aware of, and really shifting our mindset and our belief systems and our structures around weight and weight loss is so important for just breaking out of this and getting onto a more sustainable, healthier path. What was really surprising, though, in the study that was done after this Biggest Loser, after however many seasons of The Biggest Loser, was that the metabolic adaptations, they were able to, of course, measure these metabolic adaptations, were greater than the decrease in calories simply needed to sustain the lower body weight that the participants were at. So our energy, and this goes back to this idea of these metabolic adaptations, right? Our energy needs day to day are based on our height, our weight, our age, and our activity level, and our gender. So a bunch of factors that all impact how many calories we burn on a day-to-day basis. And as our weight drops, our calorie needs go down. And this is often why people find weight loss harder and harder and harder as they do lose weight. The first 10 pounds is far easier to lose than the last 5 pounds, right? Yes, we can make up some of that gap with exercise, but when we lose a lot of weight, we need to keep up a lot of exercise, right? To maintain that same amount of energy expenditure to energy intake. And so this is, again, why we see with a lot of these participants after the show ended, a lot of this weight coming back on. And so, yeah, it was a small study, and the degree of metabolic adaptation, varies a lot from person to person. Even within the study, like how much of a change was highly variable. But it demonstrates that this type of weight loss, this extreme rapid weight loss, isn't potentially without consequences, right? And we have to think about this once we do lose weight. Whatever habits we form, whatever things we're doing, we are going to want to maintain that long term if we want to maintain this weight loss. The other thing that's important to recognize is that our bodies change and go through seasons, right? Our bodies do not need to stay the exact same all the time. Our bodies can and should change with different seasons of life, and that is okay, right? So we see a lot of people, adults now, people my age, older people, who think about the body they had when they were in their 20s. Oh, when I was in my 20s, I got married, before I got married and had my kids, whatever, I was XYZ size. And they spend their entire adult life trying to get back to that size they were when they were 20. That might not be necessary or realistic. Bodies change, and that is okay, right? But if we focus on the healthy habits that we can maintain, we focus on other markers of health that aren't weight and do what we can to optimize other health markers. It's okay if our weight and our body size are not exactly what they were 20 to 30 years ago, right? And something I want people to think about too when embarking on any weight loss attempt in general, right? Whether this is diet changes or exercise, realistically, you're making a new habit. And so can you do this new habit forever? And if the answer is no, then, I'm talking about fad diets, right? Extreme stuff. If that isn't going to be realistic for you long term to actually sustain that long term, then, it's not really worth starting at all, to be honest. All right. So next I want to talk about the drug allegations that came from the documentary. And this is a big reason why I think the show ultimately ended. Was there was some negative press that came out talking about supplements, drugs, things being given to participants. And on the show, during one of the episodes, there's a little blurb, and I don't know how big of a deal this was on the show on that episode at the time, where Jillian is asked about providing caffeine pills to people on her team and during that season. And she defends her use of giving people caffeine pills because she says that a caffeine pill is better than unlimited amounts of coffee. Now, whether or not, she says she gave him the pill, so she admitted to it. So, okay, we'll just go with the fact that yes, if in fact she was giving people caffeine pills, letting them use caffeine pills. But coffee actually has a lot of antioxidants in it and is perfectly fine in moderation, just like anything else. So, I mean, if you usually wake up and have 2 cups of coffee in the morning or a cup of coffee in the morning, or you like a cup of coffee before you go for a workout or what have you, nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody tell you not to do it. If genetically you're more caffeine sensitive or a slow caffeine metabolizer, you should limit it more. And there's definitely some performance drawbacks. If you're an endurance athlete, you may not want to use caffeine before a workout or before a competition, but all that aside, right? There is nothing inherently wrong with coffee. And if you like coffee, do not feel bad, do not feel guilty for drinking it and enjoying your coffee, right? Now, taking a caffeine pill or having 2 cups of coffee, those are the absolute same bloody thing. Like, I don't care where you get your caffeine. Caffeine is caffeine is caffeine. The same as sugar is sugar as sugar, right? So Jillian on this episode saying, well, a caffeine pill is better than unlimited amounts of coffee. Like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, if we're talking about 8 cups of coffee versus 1 caffeine pill, like, yes, that's too much caffeine. So the caffeine pill is better because it's not going to give you a heart attack. But this is the same line of thinking, right? That, like, these sort of just unfounded opinions or beliefs about nutrition and health and whatever, right? Thinking that, like, I don't know, using maple syrup or agave nectar is inherently better than using white sugar in a product or in a recipe, right? Something is healthier or better or even sugar-free, I've seen things say, but they in fact do have maple syrup or agave nectar or something like that, and they're not sugar-free, right? But it's this kind of idea that's just like, if I get enjoyment out of something, like drinking a cup of coffee, it must be bad for me. And so I need to not do anything that I enjoy, because enjoyment in life and in things and eating and drinking is why I am at this weight in the first place. So I need to now suffer and give up all of my favorite things and stuff like that in order to pay my penance for the weight that I am, right? And again, just this really problematic, really negative view of overweight people and their characteristics and what they need to do to change. So, caffeine, that was kind of a given. There was definitely some caffeine use in some people on the show. Again, I mean, drink a cup of coffee, have a caffeine pill, like whatever, right? To me, it's all the same. But I mean, at the end of the day too, like, there are a lot of weight loss supplements and or products out there that can definitely help to boost results around the weigh-ins on this show that would in fact be legal, right? Like, we're not talking about people using illegal substances like illegal drugs or even necessarily prescription drugs. I mean, again, I don't know. There are certainly tons of things. If you go to the drugstore, there's lots of things that can be used to, in a short term, boost weight loss, right? In the 24 to 48 hours before a weigh-in, things that can boost weight loss and help move the needle. Again, because this is a competition, right? This is not just who can be healthier, who can lose weight and become a healthier person at the end of it. There was $250,000 on the line, right? That is a life-changing amount of money for every single person that would have gone through this show, right? Every single participant on this show, everybody who applied to be on this show, everyone who dreamed of being on this show, that is a life-changing amount of money. And so the idea that, like, people are going to do what they need to do to see the results they want to see, whether that is the participants themselves, the trainers, right? Because again, this is a competition between them too. People on, like, the staff of the show, right? The people that are working on the show, like whoever it was that were supplying things, suggesting things, right? Maybe people were taking things in secret, or maybe it wasn't such a big secret. Like, who knows, right? There's a lot of he said, she said, yes, I did, no, I didn't, none of that ever happened, but it did. Like, lots of back and forth, all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, the stakes are high, right? There's a lot of money on the line. Everybody wants to win. And a lot of these products are things that you can just get at the drugstore, right? This is not like something you need to get by prescription. This is not something like you can walk into a pharmacy and you can pick up this stuff for yourself. So I think that certainly, if we are trying to pretend that nobody on this show ever in all the seasons, right? And not just the people they interviewed or anything like that. Like, I'm not suggesting anything about the people that were specifically interviewed, but if people are trying to suggest that no participant on this show ever took any kind of supplement or product meant to boost their results leading into these weigh-ins to improve their chances of winning $250,000, like, are you kidding me? Get real, right? Like, I would almost be more surprised if you weren't taking something, if there's $250,000 on the line, right? Just going back to X-weighted. I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about X-weighted, but there came another, kind of episode situation came up when I was thinking about this and preparing for this episode. There was a guy on X-weighted who met his weight loss goal. So he was a frustrating episode for the trainer guy. He was maybe not showing up to the workouts or not following the diet, like whatever was going on. And again, this is TV, right? So who knows how editing and stuff like that goes into it. But his character on this show is sort of this like tough guy who was hard to work with, and there was a lot of resistance and that kind of thing, which then makes you think like, why are you even on here? But anyway, not the point. He gets to his final weigh-in, and he had met his weight loss goal, whatever it was in the short term. I think it was 6 weeks or whatever that this thing took place. He had met his goal. He had done great. Oh my gosh, how did you do it? Oh, I've been drinking a bottle of wine every night. And so afterwards, the host was really frustrated. Well, if you want to, kind of cheat the system by dehydrating yourself and losing the weight and basically if you want to win by cheating, then I guess that's on you, and it is what it is. And I don't know what the prize money was for this show. Like, I don't know what was on the line here. I have no idea what the stakes were for X-weighted. I'm sure it wasn't $250,000. But again, like, even if you're talking about like a few thousand, like, you want to win, you want to do it, you want to get the job done. And so, like, is it the healthiest approach? Absolutely not. But like, this is a competition. This is a game. And so in one of the later seasons, there was one particular participant who lost a lot of weight. And, everybody was apparently just shocked when she came up for the final weigh-in and had lost, I think, the most weight that had ever been lost on the show. And they're, getting the host's reflections. Bob. Oh, Jillian and I were just in horror when we saw her. Like, our faces were just shocked, whatever. And I'm like, dude, were you not there the entire time? Like, you saw this girl's progress every single week. And then all of a sudden at this last weigh-in, you just like can't believe what she looks like. And this idea that, oh, we thought we were helping people. Like, we thought that we were doing such a good thing for our participants and for America and for whatever. It's like, no, you were making a TV show. Like, you were making a show that was supposed to get good ratings because good ratings meant more viewers, which meant more money, which meant more money for you and a bigger opportunity for you. And it just, again, was really hard to watch some of the commentary from the people who had like made the show and the staff on the show, where it was just, very not my circus, not my monkeys, but like this in fact was your circus. And, in my line of work, I've encountered endless, well-meaning, but I will say ultimately misguided professionals in the weight loss space, whether it's trainers, doctors, nutritionists, people who are just enthusiastic about fitness and health, and many of them who do believe that this really comes down to just simple discipline, right? Like pure and simple, plain and simple discipline, right? You need the knowledge and you need to just get gritty and eat less and move more. And like, yes, at the end of the day, the concept of energy balance is simple. We cannot break the law of thermodynamics. But unless you are willing to go deeper with people, right? Unless you are the professional, whatever line of work specifically you happen to be in, until you're willing to go deeper with people into what goes into their decision-making processes around eating behaviors, or what their challenges or barriers are to consistent, sustainable activity, right? You're never going to help people make lasting change, right? If it's always, well, if you're not doing it because you just don't want it bad enough, it totally disregards the complexity of our lifestyles and what we ultimately call the social determinants of health, right? There are a number of factors that impact someone's health. That is not just a matter of what they put on their plate and how much they move their bodies, right? There's so much more that goes into it. And if we're ignoring that to just say you just need to have enough discipline and enough grit and enough want, like, you're just missing the bigger picture. And so many participants after this that were interviewed said, they really wanted support. After the show ended, they said they'd have benefited so much from ongoing support and more help and follow up and things. And everyone, all the people that were part of the show were kind of just like, yeah, but you're not on here anymore, right? Like, you're not our problem anymore. So just wash their hands of it. And something as simple as these systems, right? That's what everyone needs. Everyone needs systems and supports and resources for when the going gets tough. Because, like, when you're trying to make change and make sometimes very dramatic lifestyle changes, this is not something that you just up and do with no bumps in the road, right? No hurdles, no setbacks, no nothing, right? Like, yes, you need knowledge and you need to know what to do, but you also need help doing it, implementing it, and being consistent and continuous with it, right? That's what is missing and what has continued to be missing in so many conversations, right? We sit here and we go around and around and around in circles talking about the best diet for weight loss, right? How many fights have we been online about the best diet for weight loss? How many fights do we get into about the best way to exercise for weight loss? What's more important? Like, should you wear a weighted vest or not? Or like all this stuff about what is the best thing to do to lose weight. The best thing to do to lose weight is to have supports and systems that help you be consistent with whatever change you make and gives you the knowledge and the resources that you need to be consistent long term, essentially the rest of your life, right? When we see weight loss or even a healthy lifestyle, right, as ultimately a short term thing, right? Just do this diet, get where you want to go, and then be on your merry way, or come do this workout program, lose the weight, do the challenge, and then be on your merry way. Or like this idea that if you just lose the weight, then you just need to maintain it. No, the maintenance part is the hard part, right? That's where there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be times in life when you have other demands on your time and on your energy, and it makes it more challenging to get those workouts in. There's going to be times where you're busier, or you've got kids, or there's transition in life and shifts in life that make it difficult to continue with those things. Like, you need help with the ups and the downs, right? You don't need as much help on the ups. It's the downs where we need the help, in order to really create a sustainable, healthy lifestyle as a whole. And, my personal experience working with people who have been, sort of touched by the Biggest Loser, we see that there is a really hard time. People have a really hard time with this concept of moderation and balance, slow, steady results, not focusing on the scale, incorporating more of those easy workouts, and not sort of relentlessly pursuing thinness and smallness above everything else. So to wrap up, right? That was a lot. This has been a long episode. Thank you for sticking with me. If you're still here, this maybe could have been a two-parter, but anyway, here we are. We're getting to the end. So do I think that there is a place for inspirational or motivational stories with weight loss in the media? So yes, I do. I do think that there's a time and a place that we can share weight loss stories, weight loss journeys to help inspire and motivate people. But I think that this needs to come with a level of integrity and transparency that all of these weight loss shows are missing, right? There is a huge chunk of false expectations. There's a huge amount of unrealistic, unsustainable, unkind things that these shows do to people. And showcasing that, I think, does and has done far, far, far more harm than good. We know that people are motivated by seeing other people that they relate to doing the things that they would like to do, right? So if we briefly bring the conversation back to running, I'm just going to bring you back here to talk about running. People like running a marathon, right? We talk about the challenges that go along with having a lack of inclusivity in the sport of running, right? But the more you see other people of different ages, ethnicities, genders, sizes, abilities, etc., doing something like running, taking part in an event, you believe you can do it too, right? If you see someone who looks like you, whatever that might mean, or someone that you relate to, someone like you doing something that you want to do, you're going to be more likely to believe that you can do it because you see the people that you are like doing it, right? Rather than seeing all of these people who you don't relate to at all for whatever reason doing something, it's harder to believe that you fit in there. It's harder to believe that you can do it too. So I think that seeing these stories is very helpful and motivational for people. But when the motivation or the inspiration itself involves the level of pain, suffering, humiliation, untruthfulness, right? That create unrealistic expectations, eating disorders, physical injuries, long lasting physical and psychological damage and injuries, like we're just doing it wrong. Like this is not the way. And despite the people who worked on the show kind of saying like, oh, we thought we were helping, we thought we were doing the right thing. I don't know, like maybe at that time in that culture and that era, that was seen as the right thing. But I think we know better now. I think we know that that doesn't work and that's not the way. And we need just, again, better supports, better systems, and better resources in place for people who want to make change and want the help. So where do we go from here? Whether you watch the show or not, or any of the other weight loss shows, and let me know if, leave a comment, send me an email. If you were equally as triggered by bulging brides or X-weighted or I think there was a whole show called Extreme Weight Loss, which, probably is as good as the title is. All of this stuff, right? If you were affected by that, if you have memories of that, let me know. I'd love to have, a more of a conversation around this. But if you still to this day know that you struggle with all of this stuff, right? I mean, start there rather than it being a matter of, okay, what's the next thing that I need to do or should do in order to lose weight? Start thinking about and addressing your relationship with food and exercise, right? Addressing things like this all or nothing kind of in out mindset that is probably holding you back from actually getting where you want to go. Throw your scale in the garbage. There's a time and a place for assessing hydration, using the scale, that sort of thing. But we really need to shift our focus. We really need to get away from the scale as being an indicator of anything other than how much sweat you lost on that long run. So really moving away from that and instead thinking about other ways of making progress, other ways of measuring fitness. And of course, if you're looking for help with this, I would love to help you. So if you want help to start sorting through this, to start fixing this, to start addressing all of these struggles and all of these challenges that are ultimately stopping you from becoming the best version of yourself that you want to be, and you're looking for a coach who is not going to do it Jillian style, instead is going to support you, encourage you, meet you where you're at, then I would love to help you. I have both one-on-one coaching options. I also have an online one-of-a-kind program for runners called the Fuel Train Recover Club. You can find out more about both of those at the link in the show notes. All right. That is it for today's episode. That was a long one. I don't even know how many pages of notes I had here. I think I had like 5 or 6 pages of notes for this one. Oh, we went on a whole journey. Well, if you're still here, you're sticking it out to the end, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. That was a big episode. But I think it's a really important conversation to have. And I'm happy that this documentary came out because I think it just gives us an avenue to open up these conversations that have kind of just been simmering below the surface for so long, and to really identify where some of our mindset challenges stem from. Like, I think it kind of gives like a name to the face that, or, like it kind oh yeah, okay, so I can pinpoint here where this comes from. I can start to now shift and start to address some of this stuff because I recognize now where this baggage that I've been carrying with me has come from. So yeah, I encourage you to check out the documentary and give it a view for yourself. Let me know what you think. I'd love to chat about it. You can find me, of course, over on my Instagram at Steph the Runner's Dietitian or info@stephanienatchuk.com. All right. As promised, we will be back here next week for another new episode that will be running focused. And I can't wait to see you then. All right. That's it. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.